God of creation.
Well, good morning, everyone. The four Gospels give four different lenses or accounts of the death of Jesus, and we get to see the death of Jesus through these four different lenses. And this morning we're focusing on one piece of shared dialogue between the Gospel of Matthew and Mark's account. And it's the words from Jesus himself that he cries out from the cross. And we read it here in Matthew chapter 27, verse 45. It says this: Jesus cried out in a loud voice. That already has me thinking and wondering. Jesus cried out in a loud voice. Where would he have found the strength at this hour of his death to cry out in a loud voice? But he says this: Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And there is so much weight to these profound words from Jesus. And over the past number of days and of hours, Jesus would have watched as one by one people abandoned him and forsook him and turned their back on him. The Romans turned against Jesus and they came for him. The Jewish people abandoned Jesus and they forsook him. And then we see how the disciples, his very closest friends, how they one by one forsake him, turn their back on him and abandon him. But this moment on the cross, this was a moment like no other, where Jesus feels the pain and the anguish of the Father turning his back on him. And he cries out these words: my God, why have you forsaken me? This is the moment where Jesus bore our sin. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, writes about Jesus saying that he who knew no sin became sin for us, so that we might be made right with God in Christ. And in this moment, as Jesus cries out these words, it wasn't a question expecting a response. It wasn't a surprise to Jesus in this moment, but this was a declaration from Jesus. These words that he cried out were actually a quotation from Psalm 22. And Jesus declares the anguish and pain of bearing our sin, of God turning his back on him, of being abandoned to die. And we go on to read how even the sun in the sky turned its back as the earth was plunged into darkness. Jesus, bearing our sin, the wrath for our wrong, was abandoned to die. My God, why have you forsaken me? And Jesus experienced this double death, both death physically and also putting to death our sin, so that we who know Jesus never have to feel that pain of separation or abandonment from God. This moment of Jesus being abandoned in darkness to die, it reveals to us just how worthy he is of our worship. And to me, it's no wonder in this moment of darkness and despair that the penny finally starts to drop for some people. And we read that out of the darkness, that first Roman soldier mutters those words: surely this is the Son of God. And this morning I simply just want to challenge you to let these words lead you into a deeper amazement, a deeper awe and wonder of how Jesus took on our sin, how he bore the wrath of God, how he was forsaken so that we don't have to be, how he was plunged into darkness so that we could live in light. Praise you, Jesus. But also I want this to be a challenge, these words, to to send us out with the good news of the gospel. There's a songwriter from Lisburn, a guy called Benjamin Hastings, who writes loads and loads of worship songs. He was the writer of "O Praise the Name," among many others. But he wrote a beautiful worship song called "So Will I," which speaks about Jesus, and it challenges us to respond in how we live for him. And I just want to read out the lyrics of this verse. There's a verse in it that speaks about this moment where Jesus is abandoned to die. And I would love these words to be a challenge to us. It says this: God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world was abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear, where you lost your life so that I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, then so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done, every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, then so will I. And then it finishes by speaking about how this gospel isn't just for us, but it is for everyone in this world. Our friends, our family, our neighbours, and beyond, right across this island and all the nations of the earth. And it says this: I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child that you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, then so will I. Let those words encourage us and challenge us this morning. And these words from Jesus, my God, why have you forsaken me? Let the weight of those words speak to us this morning.